everybody, how's it going? My name is Dan Shimolinski. People like to call me Chimy, and you can too. And we have a really interesting library to take a look at today. This is the ASMR library from Soundpaint. It is free, so there's no excuse to not have it. So if you don't have it, pause this video, go get it, come back so you can play along at home. We're going to be checking out the parts that you get with ASMR, talk about what it is, how we can use it, look at some programs, and of course, as always, make some sounds from scratch. So let's get started. So what exactly is ASMR? Well, if we go by what it actually stands for, and I did write this down because I didn't want to mess it up, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. In layman's terms, what does that mean? When you hear very fine sounds through a very high-gained microphone, like whispering or rubbing paper or tapping against something very lightly, let's say you've got a set of headphones on, it sends a tingling feeling from the kind of top of your head all the way down your spine. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Maybe you were listening to a podcast and, the voice was just so loud in your ears and, the talking and the whispering just kind of sends a feeling down your spine. And it's really cool. It's a trend that's kind of emerged over the past 5 to 10 years, maybe. There are people that make whole careers off of tapping things and whispering things on YouTube to fall asleep to, get therapeutic responses from. It's a very interesting industry. And what we have here is an entire library of those types of sounds. And the coolest part about this is this was sourced from the community, I believe. That's right, these were user submissions, and now we have over 800 components, which are kind of generally organized here into 9 different parts. And this is a super useful library, whether you're trying to do Foley stuff, you're trying to mix it with other instruments to add kind of interesting motion in the background of something really unique. There's so much here, and we're only going to scratch the surface. And so I am going to jump into what these parts sound like, but just a quick little disclaimer up front. I'm not going to give this whole tutorial in ASMR mode. I'm not going to be whispering like this. I don't think you want that. But I will very consciously try to not do my usual woos and all that stuff in case you want to turn up your volume to hear what these samples sound like in their highest definition at their highest volume to achieve the premium ASMR response. So let's talk about how these are divided. We have instruments, and instruments, I believe, are not actual instruments as you would think of. Like, you wouldn't hear these sounds and instantly go, oh, that's a beautifully sampled guitar or a beautifully sampled harp, but it might be a guitar or harp kind of strummed in an interesting way. And these keys are all loaded with super, super very interesting sounds that kind of are reminiscent of instruments that are familiar to us, but not quite. I'll play a couple of them just so that you can get the gist of it. So very clearly some kind of bowed instrument. We'll stop there. User submissions. So there's quite the wide variety of sounds in this particular part, but you kind of understand, like, yeah, there's a little tonal element to it, but I wouldn't call it tonal necessarily. You might also notice that they are kind of grouped in an interesting, like, it's not like, oh, these groups of notes are string instruments and these groups of notes are guitars, but you will find kind of common types of sounds in the same note range. So that's really interesting. You're also going to notice these L's after some of these libraries. I believe that stands for looped, but I'm not sure, as in when you hold the key, they're not just one shot, they are intended to be looped specific stuff. But as you also heard in that library that I just played through, there were a couple that are already looped, so it's kind of a mixed bag. This is the gist of this library, is like mixed bag, surprises, but so much source material. Let's check out others. Super awesome. I mean, that I'm just playing random notes, you know, there's no specific rhyme or reason to what I was doing there, but it came out cool. So stuff, I gather, is stuff, things, tapping on things, you know, kind of taking a paper chip bag and maybe crinkling it, or, you know, rubbing on paper, tapping on a side of a soda can. You definitely get the image of physical items with this library. Cool. So yeah, you can attach a material thing or image to almost every one of those sounds, and we get lots of stuff libraries here. We have 1, 2, 2 looped, 3, 3 looped, and then just looped. I don't want to go through every single key, but we'll just kind of quickly shuffle through them, and I'll play a couple different sounds so you can kind of get the profile of each part. Before we get into the programs, I want to talk about a concept that I feel like I have glossed over in other demonstrations and is one of the best parts of Soundpaint. And so I just kind of want to address it and teach it to you before we get into the programs, because a lot of the programs utilize this feature. And if you don't know how to use it or what it is, you're missing out. So that would be the one note same and one note stretch functions. And basically, if you're calling up any given part here, let's say we do instruments, and we find a sound over here that's maybe in the tonal realm, but is one single key. So let's just kind of go through a couple. Landed on a tonal one already, but let's find a better one. That one's kind of interesting to me. So let's say I wanted that particular sound, but an entire keyboard of that sound. What I would do is I would head over here and change the mode from default to one note stretch. Now what this does is, by playing a note, you are telling Soundpaint that you want that note to be stretched across all of the keys on your keyboard. And you can, of course, tune that, maybe using another instrument for reference, to be the correct pitch so that it responds with the keyboard as you'd expect it to. Now, let's say I want to create a multiple part sound and I'm going for an attack sound or something that is not tonal, something that I want to be consistent across the board and has to do with articulation. What happens at the very beginning of the note? We would use one note same for that feature. And one note same is same concept. You play a note, you find a sound that you like. Sorry. I'm trying to find a good attack here, sorry. Oh. That'd be kind of an interesting attack, but it's not a tonal element to me. I wouldn't want an entire keyboard of that, but it might be interesting as a non-tonal element of my sound. I'm going to go ahead and choose that note, D♯5, and then that is now everywhere on my keyboard. So tonal elements, if you want to play it like a keyboard, that would be one note stretch, one note same. Non-tonal elements, or you could be a tonal drone, I suppose, but something that's going to remain consistent every time you play the note, regardless of what else is going on. And this is a per part function. It's super, super useful. And I just wanted to go over that for the record, since I haven't officially addressed it in past demonstrations, before we get into these programs, which utilize these functions very cool ways. So let's check it out. This one's called Angel Wings. Beautiful, just beautiful. So this is an almost entirely tonal program. So we are, of course, using one note stretch, and going through an analog filter here. Did not touch the mod wheel, but it is going to the cutoff if we want control over that. So it does get quite a bit brighter. Let's check out Broken Soul. So I'm getting horror movie vibes from that, for sure. Let's check out buzzer. I see there's a gate function that's not enabled. Love sound designers that give you options. That's very, very cool. Nice. And again, another example of one note stretch. This is such a useful tool. Really glad we're diving into it in this demo here. Let's check out Crystal Spheres. This one's from Trolls. The word of the day with this library is playful. You are just playing around, the joy of exploring these sounds, making them do things that may not be the first thought in your mind when you hear them, because it's like, oh, that's very clearly just some wind chimes, but let's make it into this beautiful, playful instrument that is so, so effective. It is so, so effective. Skip that one. Let's do that one. Okay. This one is called Far Away. Horror film vibes, if you ask me. Definitely a lot of suspense action there. Super cool. I want to hear what that core sound is with none of this processing. I'm curious, like, where's it coming from? It's just that harp strum? Oh man, but through all this processing, it becomes this completely different animal. That's so, so cool. I love it. Now, when you see main in a program, that is either Troll's way or someone else in the sound design team's way of saying, this is how I want to present the essence of this library. So to me, when I see main, I'm saying, okay, this is a good example of the others looped part through typically a really fine-tuned EQ, good reverb, and just something that represents the sound set in its purest form. So let's hear what that sounds like. Just stunning. Just stunning. That is, I could meditate on that for quite some time. This was my favorite main of the stuff libraries. It's not necessarily any kind of one-note stretch fancy thing. It's just the library, but the treatment here is really, really fun to play with, and I think really captures the essence of what this library can do. So yeah, I challenge you to try and create motivic compositions using these sounds. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be tonal to be rhythmically interesting. Just there, you know, I was giving it a rhythm motif and using kind of a cluster that I liked, but a common sound on top, which was that kind of clicking thing that kept going to carry it through. So lots of stuff to explore here. So much stuff. Not earthly origin. This is Trolls. When in doubt, armbar. That's really, really cool. Definitely giving me deep space sci-fi vibes. A lot of good underscore material there. And I did not touch the mod wheel. But since it's Trolls, we once again have a 8K bump. Very useful. Very cool. Let's try Rainlike Pad. Once again, using our gate function to create some very interesting rhythms there. My mod wheel was going to a band in the EQ, the wet dry of the gate, morph amount. Did I see another layer? I'm guessing an artifact of maybe trying to morph it with something, and sound designer liked this better. Stereo image width, and of course the wet dry of the grain reverb, which is a really interesting reverb. One of my favorites to play around with. I get unpredictable results from it every time, and sometimes unpredictable is exactly what you need. I'm also noticing there are two reverbs here. You're going through the lexicon, and then that profile going through the grain, all being kind of hard chopped off by the gate. Really, really interesting signal flow stuff happening here. Let's try Shiva. So you'll find a lot of bells, bowl, glass kind of sounds within these parts, and they are the most useful in terms of creating kind of atmospheric instruments like this. A really beautiful utilization of that here. And last but not least, we will close with one of mine, actually. This is a hidden gem because it is using something from the Combo Flutters library in ambience over here, and I am utilizing one note stretch on both. And we have morph on. Going through an EQ and then a shimmer reverb. I actually do not remember what this sounds like, so it'll be a surprise to both you and me. Very cool. I like that one. I liked it then, I still like it today. So that's a very quick look at the programs that you get with the ASMR library. And now let's start making some instruments, right? Let's go ahead and say that we want an instrument that's going to utilize an attack that is one note same, a maybe not necessarily tonal element, but we will make it tonal with one note stretch. And then let's use envelopes in an interesting way to bring in maybe a third and fourth part, envelopes and or offset. That's kind of my general instinct. I'm going to be going for something that definitely has a lot of motion to it, but is also very atmospheric in character, but has tonality to it. I love this instruments part. That's where I'm going to start. I don't know why I love it so much. Maybe it's because it's familiar in a weird way, because they are created with things that are recognizable, but they don't necessarily sound like them. I love stuff that's like in that in-between world like that. Just prime for sound design, prime for creating things that you've never heard before. So don't mind me while I just kind of rummage through this part here and pick out a fun sound. I really like... That's so nice. It's haunting. I can't quite place what it is. Is it a synth? Sounds like a maybe didgeridoo processed kind of thing, but it's looping, it's long, it's strong. I think I'm going to go for that. So we're going to use our one note stretch function here, and now we have it across the board. That's pretty and unique in and of itself. My next step would probably be to assign an envelope to that so I can define the character of that sound. I'm going to have it kind of be a slow attack and a long release. And I want it to be full sustain. I don't want it to decay down to a quieter point. That works for me. So then I'm going to go ahead and turn that part off, because what I'm going to go for next is what I want the texture of the initial hit to sound like. And we got to go to our stuff part for that, because that's where all the kind of, all that stuff is. Or not. Maybe there's a train horn. That one's interesting. Maybe come back to it. I'll tell you why I like that one. It's an initial burst, so it's coming in with the other instrument. So it's not a hard attack necessarily, but it is a non-tonal element that introduces the sound of our first part there. So I'm going to go ahead and do one note same. And now I have that across the board. I do not love how it cuts off at the end there, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is mess with the decay so that I can get it to kind of fade a little bit more to its 0 point. I'm going to also bring the attack up to kind of accentuate that lift. But not so much. There we go. And just like that, just having the sustain at a 0 point and using the decay, we've kind of gotten rid of that, this thing. That hard cutoff. This is a great way to kind of shape those sounds. Sustain at 0 point, because that's where it's coming down to when you're holding the key. And decay at basically the longest you can get away with without that artifact. There we go. Now let's go ahead and listen to what it sounds like with our first layer. Oh yeah. And you know what? That second layer could have even a little longer attack, a little slower attack. Woo. I like that so much. That's really cool. What else can we do here? I'm gonna go for maybe another tonal layer, something that maybe sustains and has a little more motion. Maybe something that will have a longer attack that kind of comes in later. Let's head back over to let's try others. Very interesting. I'm still on that one. I'm on that one because I like the fact that it's tonal. I like that it's a synth. Who are we kidding? Oh, that's so nice. And it loops. So let's one note stretch that. That's pretty cool. Let's hear what everything sounds like together so far. And now we can get into some mixing. That synth is a little loud for my taste. And actually, I would maybe bring the tone to down here. Where does it sound good? I've noticed that the tone control has a little bit of natural resonance too, which I like because that's going to play really well in separating our elements and maybe into a reverb in a second here. Nice. Oh, we want some release on that though. Hold on. There we go. Nice and fluffy. And now let's compare that to the other tonal element that we have in our sound. So we've got like yeah, I'm playing a fifth here and it's giving us the fifth above that too. That's really nice. And then of course our soft wispy attack. That could even be a little louder and brighter. Okay, let's keep going. I like where this is going though. Big fan here so far. Might want to do some panning as well. You have pan control over all of these, and one of my favorite tricks is to assign LFOs to the pan function. I did that in my last tutorial, and it's super great to get some subtle stereo motion. Obviously not this drastic. Let's have just this soloed for a second, so we can hear that panning. Actually, could be a little faster and wider. I like that. And then for the attack, I keep calling it an attack. It's not an attack. It's a entrance. It's a non-tonal entrance. So let's solo the where do I want that in the stereo field? I think straight down the middle. I'll leave it there. And then this one, we could have a second, wider, slower LFO going to the pan. I think that's a really effective thing when you have two different speeds, two different widths. Really just makes it a more interesting sound. So we're gonna maybe make it LFO 2, change the bias to center, nice and slow, and nice and wide. Ooh yeah, that's gonna be cool. think that's good. I like that. What more do we need here? Well, that's a question best answered by messing around. Let's see what else we can find. I'm going to stay away from the tonal one just since that's such a specific sound and such a specific instrument. We're trying to create something completely different and new. Let's try stuff 3 looping and see what we come up with. That sounds like a soda machine to me. Does that sound like a soda machine to you? Coffee, soda. Who am I? That's definitely a coffee machine making some kind of espresso or something. So I'll tell you what I like and I'll tell you what I don't like. That buzzing off the bat, no good. But I like the bubbles. So let's try something really quick. Let's go ahead and make this a 1-note same because I don't need those bubbles to be pitched, at least not right now. So that's 1-note same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make it entirely high frequency information. Still a lot of buzz. So let's grab our offset tool and see if we can start the sample past the point where it's just buzz. I'm going to go to part 4 here. There it is. And I'm going to pair that with an envelope that is going to slowly attack and decay to a 0 point because I don't want the end of it where it's just the buzzing again. So the buzz is in there, but I think when everything else is kicking, it's going to add a really nice bit of texture. And let's do something wild with this panning. Let's do another LFO. And let's make it go quick. Actually, I want the full, this will be interesting. Let's try the full range and nice and fast. Ooh, kind of like that actually a lot. And I'm going to really bring up the volume on this part. That's going to be cool through reverb. Let's bring it in with our other parts and see where we are. Ooh. Now, if you wanted to, you could 1-note stretch the layer that we just did to tune that buzz, but I kind of like that there's a drone aspect to it. Let's head over to our effects and really give this the treatment it deserves. Let's just do a nice EQ. Let's get a really nice EQ going here. So I'm going to try and really excite the upper frequency range. A trick for that I use is just using a high shelf right around the 8K mark. I find that's really, really a sweet spot for some reason. Really excites the brightness of your timbre. So before, after. So if you had the headphones on and that was blasting, that would definitely get me tingling. That's really, really cool. And honestly, delay. We're gonna need a delay here. I'm gonna try this raindrop delay. It's a pretty interesting one. I do get kind of unpredictable results from this as well, but that might be really cool with all the motion that we have going right now. Let's try soft reflections. Bring up the mix a little bit. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's so cool. I'm gonna make that time just a little bit, the feedback down ever so slightly, but more pan spread. pretty neat. And think about where we're coming from. We just kind of are randomly picking sounds here, and now we have this super complex, very stereo image focused, motion focused, interesting sound that sounds like nothing else. I mean, can you put your finger on anything there? We're dealing with an espresso machine. So that's just a short example of how you can just grab these sounds. And really, I mean, every time I sit down and I open this library, I am approaching it with a completely open mindset. And that's going to yield the best results, because when you find stuff that intrigues you, you can say, how can I use this to make an interesting soundscape? How can I use this to create an instrument just out of that sound? Oh, it's not tonal? That's okay. I'll make it tonal with key stretch. Oh, this attack, this one single attack, this one note in this one part, I want that on every note. One key same. So that really is the best way to utilize this library. You can, of course, blend this with other instruments as well, and I'd like to just maybe do a short example of that. So check out this sound that I just found in Stuff 3. This is note B. I'll tell you in a second here, because we're going to do one note same. B2. That's someone definitely typing on a keyboard. But initially, I was thinking, man, what if I'm scoring a film and it's about an author, and the author is, it's a scene where they're typing, and I want to do something that's sentimental, but maybe has some kind of aspect that maybe subconsciously lends itself to the visual of the author typing. I might grab that sound, tone it down, really bury it, and maybe grab something like the 1928 Grand. Let's grab a really pretty reverb. I'm always a big fan of the Lexi. I think it's definitely the most natural sounding to me, at least. And I love this big bright hall preset. And you know what? I'm gonna change my mind. I want full tone. It's a choice. It's a bold choice. Just a thought. You could play along to the rhythm of something. I mean, the ideas you can get to in this are just endless. Obviously, you can use any of these kind of, more attack sounds, crisper sounds to really, accentuate a certain part of another instrument. But that's just an example of how you can literally create a rhythm off of one of these samples and play off of it. And all I did there was just pulled up a key typing thing, a piano, and then adjusted my envelope so that, I could play off of it. And it's I didn't do anything else to it. I mean, you could certainly mess with the EQ of that, where the panning is. I mean, how cool would it be to have an LFO panning those keys as you're playing? Let's try it. Maybe our main character has a deadline. Nothing to me says I have a deadline more than a arpeggiator. I don't know about you, but let's go over to that and turn that on and see what kind of result we get. I'm gonna go to chord here so I can play some interesting dissonant intervals to really accentuate the stress. It's an idea. Obviously, with such a complex, deep library, we could be here for hours exploring all of these combinations, but that's for you to do. I hope I just gave you a small taste of some of the directions you can take these sounds in. This library specifically is right up there at the top with my first go-tos when I want a Foley element or something that's going to really make my instrument stand apart from the rest of the crowd. So thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to explore this library with me. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. And, I always come up with something completely different every time I sit down in front of this library. And so if you just commit to making like one sound every couple of days and, 6 out of 7 days you come up with stuff that's like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. But that one day you come up with that magic secret sauce that's going to set your productions apart from the rest of the crowd. I mean, that's everything. And, this library is super user friendly, a lot of fun to use. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. This is Chimy signing off. See you next time.